Kal Kadosh, Boker Or, Mishna Yomi Masechet Batra, Perek, chapter 5, Mishnah Yod and Yod Aleph. And with this we finish Perek Hey. Yeah? So it starts as follows. Right? Mishnah Yod. Hasiton mekaneach midotav achat lishloshim yom. Everyone has it in the chat. All you have to do is you click on the link and you have it. So a wholesaler, right? That's called a siton, even nowadays, sitonai, right? So there, right? Sitonau to sitonai. So what is it? He comes and he says a wholesaler, right? He has to wipe down the measures. That's the pshat mekaneach midotav once every 30 days, right? So that way it doesn't start building up of all the whatever it is, sediments and all the other things that you have there. You have every 30 days, you clean it up. Ubalabait, now a household guy, he uses it much less. So he only has to clean it once every 12 months. Rashbag comes and he says, the exact opposite. A wholesaler, since he's always constantly using it up, it never dries up. So since it never dries up, he only has to do it once a year. But the guy that's doing it once in a while, it's whatever he uses, it's going to dry up, and therefore it's going to become hard and right, karush and everything. So therefore, so exact opposite. So Rashbag argues on Tanakama. It's the exact opposite. Is it going to be once a month or once every year? Machloket. According to Tanakama, the sitonai is going to be once every 30 days. The balabait once a year. According to Rashbag, the opposite. The sitonai is once a year, and the balabait is once every 30 days. Now, 1 second. We talked about a sitonai. He's a wholesaler. We talked about a balabait. Balabait is you're selling it from your house. What about a chenvani? A chenvani is a storekeeper. Right? You have the stores here, right? So he says over here, it's going to be twice a week. Okay? He also has to wash his weights also once a week. Okay? Now again, all these things is in order that things don't get sticking onto it, and then it's going to be a problem of the weights. Then it's going to be gezem. Right? And he has to wipe them out right after each and every single weighing. So wiping it is one thing. Washing it is a different thing, right? So the wiping it is in between every single one. The washing of it is going to be once a week, right? And then you're going to have, right, the wiping of it down, that's going to be twice a week to do with the midot. So you have the midot and the mishkelotav and then the moznaim. Fine. Mishnah Yod Aleph, number 11. Amar Rashbag says Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. Okay? He says like this. One of these words, right, that we just mentioned that a person comes and he has to clean his scales or weights. He says only belach, only in things which are going to be liquids, right? Any type of liquids or moist, like for example, even meat or fish, right? Why? Because since they have oil and fats and all these things, so what happens is that they have to clean them regularly. Aval biyavesh, but if it's going to be dry, enot tzarich, right? Then in dry things, for example, grain, spices, or things like that, you don't need to do all these things. Why? Because they don't stick. It's dry. You just you blow it off, but you don't have to do anything else. Okay. Next, right? The custom is that you have to add onto the goods, right? An extra tefach, right? So that way the scale will tilt to the buyer for a tefach, right? So that's what you have to do. You have to add enough there. Okay. So he says instead it's going to be a tefach of lower than the weights. If you're doing a mamash exactly even, right? And you're only adding the extra percentage of the sale at the end, notenlo gerumav. So then you have to actually give him the extra weight using the following formula. Echad la'asara belach. You have to give 1/10 of measures in liquids. That means when you're selling it, you have to give him 1%, right, of the sale. Okay, echad la'asara lelach, 1/10. And then he comes and he said, ve'echad le'esrim bi'avesh, or 1 out of every 20, right, is of dry. Which one?
But he said there's no problems of Yavesh.
1 second. Okay. So he comes now and he says like this. Okay. This is the first one, right? Then we're talking about, right? We're talking about here, right? It all depends, by the way, what are we talking about? There's no talking about when you're talking about the weights. But when we're talking about measurements, there's a difference between measurements and weights. Remember that. Okay. So now he comes and he says like this. Makom shenagu limud bedaka. In a place where the custom is to measure using a small container, right? And then you use it several times. Lo yamod bigasa, so don't use a large one. Bigasa, if the minhag was to use a large one, lo yamod bidaka, don't use a small one. Which means whatever the minhag is a minhag. So for example, you've got liters and then gallons. So if the minhag is to take according to liters, So just come, right? So you're in Canada and you're buying gas. So you use the liters. You come, you take the thing, and you're using the liters in order. So even if I'm going to take 10 liters, I take the 10 liters. I don't come and I take the gallon and say, okay, fine, the gallon is going to be whatever, whatever liters. So now I'm going to, no. If the minhag is a small one, use a small one. If it's a big one, use a big one. Limchok lo yigdosh. Ligdosh lo limchok. If the custom was to level it off, that's limchok, like machak, right? You're leveling it off. You're like a mochek. You're erasing something, so you're leveling it off, so it doesn't go over. So lo yigdosh. Don't put too much that it's above, that it's like it's like a little mountain on the top. Ligdosh. The minhag was to do right ligdosh. Don't level it off, right? So this is again the mishnayot of the last